this video, we will examine how students can use ClassWiz to support their understanding of probability through the use of simulation. Turn the ClassWiz on and we'll now set it up. We'll start by using Calculate mode in this video, so start with Menu and number 1. There are two different random commands on ClassWiz that will help students get a sense of randomness. One of these is the random number command down here, which we can get with the Shift key followed by the decimal point. Each time the equals key is tapped, a random number on the interval from 0 to 1 is generated with usually 3 decimal places. Tap another one. As you can see, every time we press equals, we get a different number. The number is represented by a fraction in math mode, and I've changed it to a decimal with the standard to decimal key each time. An alternative is to tap the Shift key followed by equals, and you notice that automatically we get a decimal result each time. An alternative is to change the calculator in Setup to line mode. We'll see Shift and Setup and the input-output, and we'll change to line mode number 4. This is a good idea, but only for this purpose, because more results will now fit on the screen. So let's get a random number, equals, and then press equals a few times. You can see a succession of results automatically coming up as decimals. In general, math mode is much better, so change it back to math mode after this video. Now, when students generate random numbers like this, different results will be obtained each time, and there's value in comparing results between students or over time, or both, to see the unpredictability of the process. The other random command available is the random integer command, which we can access with the alpha key and the decimal point. You can see in the bottom of the screen. The interval for the integers needs to be given, separated by a comma. So here's a command from 1. The comma you can see is up here. Shift and the right parenthesis, and 40. And close the parenthesis. This will generate a random integer between 1 and 40. 25 in this case. And if we tap equals again, it will repeat the same command. 34, we get a fresh one each time. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely we'll get the same one again. So tapping equals repeats the command, and we can generate many random integers in that way. Once again, students can use this command for various experiments, compare their results with each other, and look to see what happens in the long run. If you wish, you can also reduce the font size on the screen in Setup, which will increase the number of lines on the screen from 4 to 6. Shift and Setup, go down to multi-line font. And if we select one and select a small font, now every time we press equals, you can see we get more results on the screen, but they're quite small. I'm going to change mine back to the normal font. Shift and Setup. We can go up to multi-line font and choose normal font. So we don't get as many, but it's easier to see. Now that we've seen the random commands, let's see how they can be used in a spreadsheet so that lots of data can be summarised efficiently. Enter the Spreadsheet mode with Menu and number 8. You can see the icon for Spreadsheet over there. We will simulate what happens when you roll a 10-sided die, with each of the numbers 1 to 10 equally likely to occur. To start, we will use a formula to generate a random integer from 1 to 10 in each of the 45 cells in column A. So with the cursor in A1, where it is now, we'll use the Option key to insert a fill formula command, number 1. Notice ClassWiz automatically adds the equal sign. Now we need to include the command for a random integer from 1 to 10. The alpha and the decimal point is the random integer command, and we want to go from 1 and comma to 10. The formula doesn't quite fit on the screen, but we can see that it was all there as we put it in. Now we can use the cursor key to edit the range from A1 right down to A45. I'm going to delete that final one and change it to 45. So each cell will contain a formula. Now if we finally tap equals, we will show the formula. And now if we tap equals, we will execute the fill command. And notice that each of the cells now has a random number from 1 to 10. We can scroll down or indeed scroll up to see what all of those numbers are. Check the first few and then we can recalculate to get a new set. How do we recalculate? Option and down and number 4 recalculates. This time it starts with 1, 4, 5 and 7. And if we do that again, recalculate, this time it's 1, 6, 8 and 5. We can just see we're getting different results every time. This is a lot faster and a lot quieter than rolling the die 45 times. The spreadsheet can automatically summarise some of the simulations. For example, let's put a formula in C1 to show the minimum value of the rolls. I've moved the cursor to C1. Now we'll firstly start with the pink equal sign for a formula. And now we have to add the minimum command. So option and down 1, you can see the possibilities: minimum, maximum, mean and sum. So we're going to choose the minimum command, which is number 1. And we have to tell the spreadsheet the minimum of which cells, A1, and we need a colon to indicate the end cell, alpha, and the colon is over here, A45, and there we have the minimum of all of the rolls that have just been generated. Not surprisingly, it's 1. When we roll a 10-sided die 45 times, it's likely that we'll get at least 1, 1. Now let's put the maximum command in cell D1 in the same way. Start with the formula, the equals for the formula, add in the maximum command, which is number 2, and indicate the range of cells involved from A1, and again using the colon, down to A45. And when we do that, we've regenerated the spreadsheet, and you can see in this case the minimum was 1 and the maximum was 10. In the same way, we could put the sum of all of the dice rolls in D2 in exactly the same way. The command starts with the equal sign. We choose the sum command, which is number 4, and we will again specify the range using the pink colon key of the entire A column. And there we go. The sum in this particular case is 272. Notice each time we do this, the spreadsheet is recalculating, so the results in column A are different. And then finally, let's put the mean of all the rolls in cell D3 down here. We could divide this number by 45, but it's just as easy to use the spreadsheet built-in command for a mean. So again, it's starting with the equal sign, and we have to choose mean, which is down here, number 3. And again, in the same way as for the last few examples, from A1 down to A45. And the mean in this case of the 45 dice rolls is 5.888. So now our spreadsheet is ready to use. Every time it is recalculated with the recalculate command, a new set of 45 rolls will be obtained with a new minimum, a new maximum, a new sum and a new mean. So let's try this. Option down number 4 and equals. Takes a moment because they have to generate all that data. There we are. The sum this time is 221. The mean is quite small, 4.911, and the rolls go from 1 to 10. Students should do this lots of times and study how it changes. We can do it again. Option, down, number 4, and here we go. This time the mean is a bit larger, and of course the sum is a bit larger accordingly, but we still go from 1 to 10. We are most interested in the mean, which will probably be fairly consistent each time, usually close to 5.5, because the die, remember, has 10 sides and each one is equally likely to occur. Let's do it one more time. Number 4, again. And you can see 5.3 this time. Although using a simulation of enough cases, we can see that despite the random result for each dice roll, the big picture is consistent. Students can compare their results with those of other students. In this case, every time we did it, the mean was quite close to 5.5. So the students can see that although we don't know what we get when we roll a die once, we get a good idea of what happens if we do it many times. Finally, the spreadsheet can be changed to perform a similar experiment by using a new fill formula in cell A1. For example, let's roll a pair of 10-sided dice, not just one dice. So the formula needs to include a command for each of the 2 dice. So we go back to cell A1, which remember we used with a fill formula. So we'll enter the fill formula, and the command is alpha and the random integer from 1 to 10. That's the first die. And now we want to add a second die. So we roll a second dice independently of the first one. Alpha, random number, 1 to 10. And the formula adds together the 2 dice. And again, we want to go from A1 right through to A45. So now every time we recalculate now, we'll get a new set of 45 rolls of a pair of dice. Let's do that once and see what happens. Takes a bit longer because there's a bit more work to do. So you can see here the rolls in column A1, and you get an idea of the size by scrolling around. We can scroll up as well and see what's happened. And over here we have the summary. The smallest result was 2, which is what you'd expect. 2 10-sided dice, they've got 1 each. The largest result was 20. That's as many as you could possibly get. And the mean is close to, in this case, 11. Of course, we wouldn't do just one simulation. Let's do it again. Option and number 4 takes a bit longer than the other one. We can see here again we went from 2 to 20, and the mean this time was exactly 11. And let's do it another time. And we can see a lot of consistency, but a bit of variation as well. So in this case, the smallest value was a 3, there wasn't a 2. And the largest value was 17, there wasn't an 18, a 19 or a 20. And the mean was a bit smaller. And maybe just one more, option 4. And here again we've got something a little bit more typical. The mean 10.9, close to 11, and the minimum 2 and the maximum 20. Of course, in a classroom, we would have all of the students doing this on their class whiz, and they could compare the results and get a good idea to see randomness in action, to get some sense of what is the same when you do things often that are at random. Well, that's the end of our adventures with probability. Students can use class whiz to simulate many probability activities. You'll find Module 12 of the Class Whiz book also contains information on how Class Whiz can be used to deal with aspects of probability. as well as detailed explanatory text which can be copied for students as well as teachers. The module includes some exercises to check efficient Classware's use, some examples of activities to suggest educationally valuable things to do, and some guidance for teachers. You can download this book freely from the Casio Worldwide Education website. Happy calculating!